Hi, fourth graders. It's Mrs. Wise here. I would like to talk to you today about Chapter 2. We're going to be reading Chapter 2 today in Porpoise in Peril. And some of the things that we are focusing on are text evidence, so looking for clues in the text. And also we are talking about making inferences. Making an inference is where you look at clues in the text and use them to come to a conclusion. All right, today here's Chapter 2. The next morning, the team stood outside the front of the inn and looked around at the small town in daylight. There wasn't much to it. The small inn, some houses, and a few other guest houses that served tourists who came mainly to see the porpoises. There were hardly any people in sight, and the beach was a 2-mile walk from the town. Outside in front of the inn, Reggie found a taxi to take them to the beach. But just as he opened the door, a man carrying a briefcase came from nowhere, rushed past him, and jumped in. Kate noticed the letters DDJ written in small letters on the man's briefcase, and the whiff of citrus and cedar floated out the window behind him. Reggie stood open-mouthed, watching the taxi speed off. "Well, that's rude," muttered Cam. Wrinkling his nose at the smell, he spotted 4 rickety, old-fashioned bikes at the front of the hotel. Nodding to Reggie, he said, "We can use these bikes to get to the beach. That will solve our transportation problem." After a bumpy, uncomfortable ride on the old bikes, they reached the beach and quickly located Dr. Vloodman's research station. They approached and gently pushed open the door to the small, weather-beaten hut. Dr. Vloodman looked extremely relieved to see them. "You must be the science squad," he said. "Thank you for coming so quickly." Stacks of papers cluttered his desk, and charts and coastal maps covered every inch of the wall space in the tiny wooden hut. Dr. Vloodman smiled and peered at the team through thick lenses. "I am so grateful that Professor Q sent you. It's puzzling, but we have to find out what's wrong with our porpoises before it spreads. Also, they attract tourists, and as you've seen, the town is pretty quiet at the moment." He trailed off. "That's why we're here," Jada said. "Tell us what you know." "Well, about 2 weeks ago, we started getting reports from fishermen down on the beach about the porpoises acting peculiarly," he said. "Can you describe their odd behavior?" Reggie asked. Dr. Vloodman frowned in concentration. Well, most of the fishermen on our island are very secretive," he began. "They don't like to talk to officials. You see, our town is so small that everyone knows everyone else. You might have better luck since you don't have an official look." He glanced at Reggie's cargo shorts, beat-up tennis shoes, and Kate's leggings. "We like to be comfortable," said Cam, looking down at his clothes. "And anyway, we work in the field, hacking our way through dense forests, wading through swamps, and climbing mountains." Kate interrupted. "What about any unusual algae?" she asked. "Just what you would expect to find in these coastal waters," Dr. Vloodman replied. He talked for a few more minutes, but he didn't have any answers. It looked as if the survival of the porpoises was in the hands of the science squad. They thanked Dr. Vloodman, and they promised to let him know what they found. "Wait, one more thing," Dr. Vloodman called just as the team was about to squeeze out of the tiny door. "I received a communication from a Coast Guard that a barge loaded with mining equipment drifted very close to our island some weeks ago. Apparently, it lost steering power. It would have been a disaster if the barge had tipped and that oily equipment had landed in our waters. Anyway, the crew worked on the steering overnight, and by the next morning, it had vanished." "The mysterious vanishing barge," Kate said. "When did this happen?" "Well, 10 days before I sent the first porpoise report to Professor Q," said Dr. Vloodman. "Okay, I'll need the coordinates of the barge's overnight location, its route here, and its final destination," said Kate as she opened a map app on her tablet and keyed in the information. "Thank you, Dr. Vloodman," Reggie said as he put his notes into his backpack. "We'll be sure to tell Professor Q how helpful you've been."
Calendar invite. I have a few announcements first
Chapter 2.
before we start our workshop. Thank you.